Everybody say it mean.
Who's that out there living the dream? Let's blow in the bean. Who's that still smoking all that green? Let's blow in the bean. Come on, y'all, let me hear you scream. Let's blow in the bean. Let's blow in the bean. Let's blow in the bean. Go.
Welcome back, everybody. Post UFC 113 FS on Fox. We have had quite a week. How have you been here at LatB?
I'm doing all right. Fight week finishing, fight week starting soon, fight week after that. We have a busy summer.
We've been full go, for sure, and it has been exciting. I mean, we just came off of one of the fights of the year. We had a fun showing. There was a lot of finishes over the weekend. It was in Glasgow. A lot of Scottish. I feel like guys didn't come through. I feel like there was a lot of foreigners that came in and cleaned up all over the world.
I shit the bed on my picks for this fight night, but I really, in my head, don't know a lot about these fighters. A lot of them are new, and I tend to bet better when I can watch them. I have to watch them evolve. I have to know more about them than one fight. And some of these guys hadn't ever fought in the UFC.
I would say definitely don't beat yourself up, because the fact that you have the balls to even put your thoughts out there and make a pick on air, and we'd be able to take criticism for it. So don't worry about it. If anyone else wants it, they
But
can
you know
go
what I
on
do feel good about? And I think on DraftKings are always Leslie Smith, underdog, pick 100% of the time. 120 points with a little knockout. We can start it. It's the first fight of the night. We can talk about it.
It was the first fight of the night. It was a hell of a way to start it. I mean, that forward pressure of Leslie Smith completely wore down the Brazilian. That Brazilian, if she has a gas tank, she's going to beat a lot of other women, because she was tearing Leslie Smith's leg apart with leg kicks. Leslie Smith just went forward, Brazilian gassed in the second round, and that TKO was a standing TKO. Refs came in where that Brazilian couldn't hold her arms up, and that happened because Leslie Smith never let the Brazilian get her legs under her. Get her legs under her, and fun fight. Leslie Smith is our underdog forever. She was a 3-1 favorite though at the closing odds.
People are on to us.
Yeah, they must be on that LatB bandwagon.
You know, one thing, and you can let us know at Lesbo and the Bean on Twitter. If you want us to just talk about the main card, or not we're one of the only podcasts that break down the first fights. I want to know what people prefer. If they prefer more in depth on the main fights, or if there's not, they wish more people covered these early fights. I don't know. Let us know. Moving on.
So, on to the next fight. We had a decision between Brett Johns versus Morales. I was boasting that Morales was going to be able to use his wrestling in reverse and do well. And guess what? Didn't work at all. Brett Johns had really bad takedowns against somebody who has no takedown defense. If Morales can't stop those takedowns, I think it's his time to go. He needs to go on the local scene, get his wrestling game in check. Wild brawler, and it just doesn't work at this levels. Brett Johns exposed that wildness in Morales and just put him on the ground on his back. It was a boring fight. Did you happen to catch any of it?
Yeah, I walked in and out on that one.
Exactly. So then we had another bout that went to decision between Henry versus Tamura. Tamura being the younger brother of the other Tamura. We had questions about that.
Yeah, we were.
And gassed.
David and Daniel Tamur.
Right.
We actually, I have to say, you can even look back. We've been following both the Tamur brothers for quite some time.
So it was a gritty showing.
I can't believe we didn't know.
I know. I just couldn't verify it, and I didn't want to make it up and totally be wrong with that.
It looked like he blew his wad.
Exactly.
And then when he got his second wind, I really didn't think it was going to go to the end at all. Like, he, if it would have swung the other way, it wouldn't have surprised. I thought the pendulum had swung.
Either guy could have won, and you wouldn't have been upset.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Tough fighters to watch, both of those guys. I think they're going to have interesting bouts next. Then we have one of the most interesting knockouts you're ever going to see in your life. I've never seen in my
Brutal.
career.
Okay, I didn't know if I was young where I'm like,
No.
I was standing at
Never.
the bar like, I've never seen this since I've been watching UFC. I've never seen somebody get knocked out like that.
Yeah, I can say the only other knockouts that I can think that have happened in the UFC due to a throw. This is now the Bufando versus Ward out of Scotland, and if you guys caught this, it wasn't even a throw. It was just a muscle shrugging. He was more shrugging the guy off to get off of the fence, Bufando was, and he picked up Ward enough to be able to throw him, and Ward landed with his head in the corner of on the mat, in between his shoulder and head, and that stunned him pretty good. I mean, he pretty much went limp. Then he ate some huge hammer fists. Night was over. But essentially, he got spiked.
It was a scary knockout.
It was really, really weird because you could easily see neck trauma. But I think that the fighter got up and was absolutely fine. With Bufando, if people are going to be putting tons of money on him next fight around, do not do it, because Ward was not a caliber fighter. You saw it in there, because for you to let yourself get tossed around like that against someone who wasn't trying to, because there was no technique. I watched that throw time and time again.
Strength.
It was all strength and muscle, and that's not going to work
Force.
against a real wrestler. A real wrestler is going to stay on your hips and you're going to gas out. But Bufando's quick. Looks like he has power, but it really wasn't the power that finished him. It was the toss. Fun fight. So moving on, we had a submission from Alejandro Pantoja versus Neil Seery. I was all over Seery in this. He did end up getting, I believe, 40 points. He lost in the third round. Pantoja striking was on point. Extra crisp. Great leg kicks. Seery didn't really go to the takedown, but Pantoja's ground game is extra credentialed, so it would have been hard for him there. And that was accumulation of a submission coming after getting beat up the whole time. Seery stayed in it, but he only landed one or two good shots the whole time. Pantoja's going to be... He's a 14th in the world right now, and he's going to move up that ladder. He just needs to work on his gas tank, because it only gets harder from Neil Seery on. You ain't going to get any easier fights.
Seery
Retirement. Thank you very much.
Retire.
He just did. That was his retirement fight.
Oh, did he say that?
Yeah, it was. People
so
knew
rude.
coming in. It's his time. It was his at home. So that was two at home guys in a row that lost, throwing that out there. Then moving on to the next fight, we ended up having...
Bobby Nash versus Danny Roberts.
And Bobby Nash's wrestling looked amazing. Danny Roberts started to get wilted. Danny Roberts has been going to here. He's been down here at the Armory and stuff with
Black
Usman.
Zillions.
Black Zillions, there you go. And the wrestling was... Bobby Nash's wrestling was slick. He was fast in on his shot, taking Danny down. Danny was able to get up. And
Nice
those
takedowns,
knees,
nice double legs,
yep.
nice... Yeah.
Beautiful. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter who you are. And Danny Roberts has gotten better at his wrestling.
They looked like
because he was
easy
getting up.
picks. It just like, whoop,
That's how good they were.
Whoop,
That's how good they
textbook.
were. They were fast and low, and for a guy that size to move that much, but that chin might be a little rough for Nash. He might not be able to take the best shot, but Danny hits really hard. So I think watch Nash if he stays in. I think this might be his second or third loss. I think he can grow. Danny Roberts, keep an eye on that guy. He's going to be getting better and better. Then we had a debut fight between two heavyweights. Everyone thought this was going to be a submission or knockout in the first round. Went to decision.
I didn't.
Oh,
That was
really?
where I actually have to say, even though I wasn't right, I had Mulheron on my cards, and it wasn't a bad pick for the price of
Right.
discrepancy in the two. I said he was going to come in like a mad dad, but really what I was saying is I don't know shit about Mulheron, but I AKA am not a big fan, and Justin Willis didn't impress me at all.
I agree with that. And that would be... I'm not excited for either one of these fighters in the heavyweight division. Though I did like, with Willis, he looked like he was a skinnier guy fighting a heavyweight fight, the way he was moving. But that gas tank immediately got... If it would have been another caliber of a heavyweight, he would have had
Exploded all day.
Yeah, he would have had Willis on the ground or beat up way before that. So definitely keep an eye on these guys, not in the best way. I think that, they should not be heavy favorites in whatever fight they fight next.
Where I was the most wrong of the whole night.
This was a fun one. You saw a man pretty much die in that ring.
Craig is dead.
Yeah.
Craig is dead.
He died. He ate an uppercut, an inside short left uppercut that Roundtree was setting up. I had 100% perfect on Tapology on this. Second round knockout. I mean, from the first round, you could see that Roundtree was dominating the offense. Craig didn't even go for takedowns.
First round knockout? It was right at the end of the first round because I thought the round almost ended.
It did. Never mind. I'm getting confused with a different fight. So this ended at 4 minutes 58 seconds of the first round. With seconds, I mean, the 10-second bell clapped and he ate that uppercut and then got hammer fisted. But
I still don't know how he knocked him out. I watched it over and over again. I'm like, what happened?
He throws Roundtree throws a left head kick. Craig blocks it, but it throws him off balance. Then as Craig bounces off the fence, Roundtree throws a right hook because he's a southpaw, so his left hand is cocked, and he throws a straight uppercut up the middle. He did it a few times in the fight, if you look at the whole fight, because it was only a round. But he was setting that up. I really like Roundtree's aggression and confidence, because that's the thing in some of the fights that he's had, is he's been a little iffy and his performance looks, and he said it after the fight himself, he didn't have a game plan, he just went in there and knew he was going to win. Though that takedown defense that he was giving Craig, he was offering his leg a couple times, like, go ahead, and he was switching his hips in and out, looked like he was dancing. What he was doing was showing Craig, here's my hips, in wrestling you'll do it as well. Take my legs, take me down, we'll see what happens on the ground. He wanted to land those uppercuts on Craig earlier. Craig never bit in for that. But also, I'm just saying, be cautious with Roundtree because Craig wasn't the best opponent, and he looked really good. So he's going to be a big favorite next time around, and I don't think that necessarily is going to be the case. Did like the way he looked. Craig, what do you think he does next in the UFC?
Get knocked out.
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't really put Craig on too much more. Roundtree, I totally agree with you. You still have to be cautious with him going into it. What happens if they give him another heavy-handed fighter? He's in an interesting division, though.
I agree. Totally. So moving on to the next fight, we had a decision between Jack Marshman and Ryan James. This was a snoozer of a fight. It was pretty much a kickboxing match. Both guys, I actually think James did way better than I thought he was initially going to do, and I was surprised that Marshman couldn't finish James multiple times over, so both of these guys I'm not looking forward to in the UFC. I think that they're going to have a rough time. It was just not a good showing for either fighter. They did well, but either way. We are moving on to the next fight between Paul Felder and Stevie Ray. I ended up switching my pick from the podcast to Stevie Ray. I thought Stevie Ray was going to have more of a ground advantage. Didn't need to go there. Knees finished that up real quick with elbows.
Do you have confidence now in Paul Felder going forward from here?
No, I still don't.
Me too.
I still don't because
it's so crazy.
I just feel like Paul Felder. Now, I don't want to say that it was a lucky knee because he set up that knee that started that ground and pound, and those elbows were beautiful, but I feel like Felder is still exploitable with good takedowns, and what I did
I've never been really excited about Stevie Ray. It just is over Paul Felder.
Yeah,
They're both just that type of guy where it's like, meh.
With these UK guys, and I've done it, what I did for this card is I over-exaggerated in my head some of their wrestling ability, and that's where I thought Stevie Ray was going to be able to exploit Felder. That's why I switched my pick.
And some of their hometown advantage a little bit.
On top of that, but a lot of these home guys did not come through. I did think Stevie Ray. Yeah, I think that's a good point.
None of them did.
So moving on to the next fight, we have the co-main event between Cavillo versus Calderwood. This was a unanimous decision. Turned pretty much a kickboxing match.
I don't necessarily think it should have been 30-27 at all. I was surprised at that.
I could have seen a split decision either way and not been outraged.
I thought Cavillo, she's impressive because Calderwood is a naturally bigger woman. I don't know what JoJo. I think she's kind of like a likable Jessica I, where she's more of a for the audience than technique. She's gotten better, but I just don't know where she goes from here. I think Cavillo, I really like her personality, but I think she's kind of basic. And I think we see Cynthia progress, but I don't know how much more she can progress. She started this game late.
I think in the division she's in, though, and we don't
With
know...
monsters?
But we don't know also the real
You want to see
longevity.
Cavillo Page?
All day.
That's a good fight,
All
right?
day, exactly. But I don't think Paige is at the level of Calderwood. I think Paige has lost enough times to not have to be there. What
I think Paige could beat Joanne Calderwood.
I don't think so. But what I would say with Calderwood, I switched this. I had Calderwood on the cast, but when she didn't make weight, I had ended up switching to Cavillo because, as I was saying on our podcast, that if JoJo doesn't have her head straight, she tends to fold in fights.
You did.
And I feel like that's kind of what happened when as soon as she missed weight, she lost already a little battle.
I know. I wish she would have missed weight by 1.5 pounds.
It was-
and I would have changed it. It was the enough where I'm like, she didn't try the last night and saved her strength.
And I think that's a good point because I thought that too, so it made me consider otherwise. But then I remembered our podcast and I'm like, she's already lost everyone talks about battles in the fight game, and weight cut is the first one. Everyone will tell you, got to make weight first, then you can fight. And she didn't even make weight, so I do think it was skewed. I could have seen 29-28, if not a split decision, but Calvillo ended up winning.
I don't think Cavillo has a hard cut either.
No, not at all. Not at all. She doesn't cut at all. Moving on to the main event between Gunnar Nelson and Santiago Ponzinibbio. Wow. This went a whole minute and 22 seconds. I ended up switching this. I believe I had Gunnar 4th round submission, and as you can see on my tab right there, I ended up picking Ponzinibbio submission, and it was the reasons that I thought the wrestling
decision.
Well, I thought it was going to be the wrestling in reverse, and he would keep it up and just kickbox him to a decision because Gunny's gas tank. But that didn't happen at all. The crisp striking ended up getting Nelson out of there. Though there is one caveat. Have you seen it? Have you been on Twitter enough and seen what Kavanaugh put out there today?
No.
And this is true. You can go back and see the fight. A few seconds before that whole combination even started, Ponzinibbio opened fingers directly into Gunny's eyes. And you can see marks on the inside of Gunny's eyes. To credit to Gunnar Nelson, he never once complained or said, my eyes were fucked during that. He just took the loss like a man and is like, all right, we'll get back in there. But there is one of the worst eye gouges. There's Twitter pictures going around. Yeah. It's legitimate.
Damn it.
It is totally legitimate. So I could see that it's a little bit skewed. I mean, Pons is getting the TKO finish, but you keep that in mind. That kind of stuff happens. Fights like this have been overturned in the courts. There's been headbutts where headbutts have happened. People have put in hey, that was a headbutt. Why I lost that because of submission. The headbutt got me. And they've turned him over and been like, oh, we didn't see that at the time. I think Gunnar Nelson has a valid point to put it in and say, I had blurred whatever. But I don't think even in the fight he really looked at the corner or anything. And I think Pons has got a lot of power. They're both people to look at. Gunnar Nelson's not leaving the UFC.
I'm still interested in both of them.
Agreed.
As fighters, I actually... And it's weird because Ponzinibbio, I always have liked him more than Gunnar Nelson until, it might be a lot of the camp bleed over and how hot John Kavanaugh's camp is right now because of Conor.
Yeah.
That it's just kind of hyped all the fighters for me. I really like Gunny Nelson still. I still like Ponzinibbio a lot. It makes me bummed about the eye gouge because I was really like, whoa, Santiago.
He walked right through him.
Watch.
Yeah,
wow,
he walked right through him.
But
yeah, I would say that the technique was still there. And there's still a heavy duty power that there was that secondary shot that hurt Gunny that pretty much put him down on the ground. It was like a short left straight and Gunny stiffened up and then the ground and pound finally took him out of there. But oh man, it was exciting. It was
fight day.
Yeah,
it was nice to have on before the Game of Thrones.
So you watched. How did you feel about that? Moving on. So great fights, everyone. If you tailed us, you did pretty good, especially on those underdog picks. But moving on to the weekend, How did you feel? Because I was there. I was watching it. I was not as surprised as I thought it was.
Hold on, let me play the little clip. Spoiler alert. And you know what? Fuck off with spoiler alerts anymore. Fuck off with spoiler alerts. I feel like it's not like it would have been one thing if we started, it was nice to have on before the two dragons ate the queen's head off. You know, like gave away something really big before any. But if we're like, and I watched Game of Thrones, if you're really trying to save it for yourself right now, then, and we gave you that, just so I watched the Game of Thrones, turn it off. Don't go on Twitter. Don't go on Facebook. Don't go on these things. I'm never going to say spoiler alert ever again on this podcast.
Oh, dun dun.
I just feel like you never know what you're going to get. You can get mad all you want. You can tweet directly at me.
Yep, that 15
at party and bullshit. At weakneck baby on Twitter.
You can also
That was karma. But Game of Thrones is pretty. I thought it was all right.
There were so many parts that I want to get in, but I just don't even know. All I can say is not enough nudity for me. I guess that sums it up for the first.
I'll say this, and I don't know if you were thinking it at all. Is it just me, or has Daenerys completely lost her sex appeal?
I'm fucking horrible with the names.
Khaleesi.
I agree.
She is not sexy anymore.
I agree. Now they're making a point to
Those
always
shoes
show
she
her
was
beauty.
wearing on the beach was not cute.
Those high heels?
Yeah, they were not.
Those enough shoes. You hanging out with Conor McGregor? What the fuck is going on? You little leprechaun, get the fuck out of here.
I'm kind of disappointed. She is not the. And Stanza, she looks like I felt like Littlefinger made mention to it too. I felt like Stanza's looking kind of masculine.
I don't even think so. I think she got horsehair. Multiple times, and I got made fun of at my viewing party because I was like, Sansa, you gotta get a comb in that hair, girl. Come on, you're emperor or you're the queen of the what? You ain't queen of shit with that baggy ass hair. No one's gonna take you seriously, girl. Come on.
It was all right.
It was a fun show. I can't wait for the next ones. What are they gonna wait? Like 2 months until the next episode?
Sunday.
Oh, so we're gonna have a Saturday night card in Jersey, and then we're gonna go into some Sunday stuff. Before we get into that Saturday night card, though, on this fun little entertainment, is there anything else you've been watching?
Finished up the Mac May World Tour.
Well, I thought we were just gonna blow past that, but if we have to get there, I guess we will have to talk about the last 2 legs. Where did we live off the fans last time? We were on the second time.
We were on a high from Toronto.
Oh, and what a high that was to just live in Toronto days and forget about all the other disgusting bullshit that happened.
I don't even know if we need to go on.
Exactly right. It's just like forget about it. Be like Toronto. That's how the rest went. Everybody's loving it, and we're gonna make billions of dollars. It pretty much
to me. They could have waited. I think they should have done 2 pressers, month off.
Agreed, 1,000,000%.
2 pressers, month off, 2 weeks. Weigh-ins.
Yep.
Fights.
I agree. 1,000,000%. And 5, not even 6. They didn't have to do 2 the last set. Just 1, and then weigh in, and then done.
Not even a presser again.
Yep.
They could just meet for the weigh-in. Yep. I think 2,
but
2,
4,
1 for weigh-ins.
4 doesn't make any sense back day to day to day, and
they ran out of material.
Exactly. There's only so much you can go on. There was claws, there was stuff, and by day 4 it got intense, but quickly, just to keep on to day 3 in New York. How much money do you have to be making to make that goofy pant money? How much do you got to be getting paid to be wearing goofy pants with no shirt, which is gangster, but I don't like it.
The whole outfit.
He was wearing a mink and made a note to it multiple times, like, I'm wearing a mink. And it's like, oh, goddamn, that's cringy. I don't know. I didn't like that. I thought it was not that cool. The mink avenue. It was a pimp-ass mink.
Oh, I think what's interesting about Connor now, to a year from now, when we're sitting at some bar, is every dude going to be wearing patterned fucking pants? You know what I mean? Like, is he changing fashion that we're not even knowing about? Like, is he doing something different? Like, Floyd's wearing shit that, you wore in high school in the late 90s. Yeah. Like, he's not wearing anything cutting edge, nothing that's going to change the game. Connor as far as we know, he wore a suit that he has a clothing line coming out.
Right.
So this is really an interesting, and at the level he's at, does Gucci call him and say, hey, we have a mink if you want to wear it on stage?
I think that's what is starting to happen, which that's next level. That's changing the game on other levels.
And it's so different than having Nike call you. I know as far as the streets are concerned or kids are concerned, like having fresh Air Jordans or whatever and sneaker collector, but having Gucci
High
call
fashion.
you, high fashion, this next level of I don't want to even talk shit to sneakerheads, but there's some like Gucci shoes, some old school. It's just, it goes back hundreds of years. There's just a culture
Lineage.
in it. Yeah, and so I think it's definitely interesting that Connor's taking that route. Whether or not you like it, you're talking about those fucking pants. You're talking about that stupid jacket.
Yeah, I agree.
Where
Totally agree.
I can't remember day to day what sweatshirt and hat Floyd had on. I don't remember his outfits day to day. I know that what they were, I could pick them all out if there was 10. Like, he wore these 4.
Right. It was like a t-shirt. It was all TMT shit. It was all Team Money Team.
Like the
but
Canada-
it
yeah.
was all corny as shit. With the back to the New York talk real quick. What do you remember other than the clothes? What do you remember other than some of the sayings, I guess? What came out of New York for us?
Is New York the bag and the flag, or was that Toronto?
The flag happened in New York. So that
Was that New York with
that
the flag
was-
in the bag?
Mm-hmm. That was New York because a fan was gonna give he was asking Mayweather to give the flag to Conor, and Mayweather ended up giving it to him, and then he ended up posing like Conor with it. And if there was a time that I thought that there was gonna be a punch
See,
thrown, it
I
was
thought
gonna
that
be
was
that.
Toronto, because in New York, I thought the word.
fuck,
I
could be
thought
wrong.
New York was
Could be fucking
Voltron.
wrong.
Forum Voltron.
I don't.
That's
I don't
where
know if I read
Mayweather said to his beefed out posse, "Form Voltron," and they all went and turned into like a
stood
wall
around him.
Connor.
Oh my god, that's what he said.
Yeah.
Oh, that was
even that.
weak
All
kid
his,
shit.
anything he does is so old.
Childish
It's
shit.
like, dude, you're 40, you're not 70. Like,
Right?
Jeez, Form Voltron. Voltron, how long ago was Voltron? 1983? That's some facts of life shit. Form Voltron.
I think that it only got worse after New York. Going into the London, which was, I feel like, the most interesting part. Well, going back to New York, with that came off of with the Espinoza Commissioner Showtime stuff, where the crowd was booing him. In New York, it got 10 times worse. In New York, he was really getting it, and he was having comments on Twitter and all MMA news, and he was saying it was getting a little bit old. Like, it comes with the territory, and the reason people are booing him is because nobody wants to hear this guy talk. Everyone's been waiting there an extra 2 hours. Did that happen in New York? Yeah. Did they wait 2 hours for New York?
I think
to
we kind
kick
of
off?
predicted it, that the first show that would be on a little bit
I
later,
think
and it
we
would
did.
progressively get later as they went on, so that by the time we got to London, we'd be like, when are these MFers coming out? New York was
And
the
it was
one where it took 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours for New York, which is... How do you expect to shit not go badly when you have a bunch of fans all sitting there? And then there was an MC that got on there before all of it as well. For 45 minutes was like, where's my Boston crowd? Where's my...
God.
Just 5 minutes straight. Where's my...
They didn't get Drizzy to come on stage like they did
right
in Toronto.
Who just said, thanks for coming out, guys. I'm a big fan.
That's it.
I'm out. That's it. Not, hey, I'm going to do
It
some
was a
bullshit
bit much.
crowd
They
work.
wrung that sponge dry.
Yeah.
It made it corny by the end, and I think it was a disservice to both fighters.
Agreed. And I would say that I believe you were telling me earlier that Showtime did all of the production for the North American tour, and in London it was done by BT Sports. The
BT
whole
Sports, yeah, I think
did the
Wimbledon,
production?
and then Toronto, New York, LA were all done by Showtime.
So I'm right on that. I love the production value that BT did. That those Europeans got it done right. I love the half of the ring or the open ring with the 2 tables, and it was set up more like a press conference instead of a poetry night tour. I just thought it was done better, and they didn't look as bad because of their situation, even though they were ripping. So going into the London, or where was it? Did they do it in London? Wimbledon. What was some of the horrible shit that went there? Apparently, was it Connor?
Fag.
But did Connor address that he wasn't racist in Wimbledon,
in
New York? He was saying,
I'm black from the belly button down.
People
That's
kind of
fucking old school.
I agree. That was lame. And
I'm over talking about it.
It carried on to the 4th day. Yeah, and the 4th day was...
They ran out of material, and it got a little touchy. I think that...
Literally, Connor actually grabbed Mayweather's head.
Yeah, it was almost corny by the end.
But what could they do 4 days straight?
Who could? Anyway.
Exactly. Another quick thing coming off of there, I know we're done talking about it. How do you feel about people getting pinstripe tattoos on their arms from these whole press conferences?
The worst. But it's not the worst tattoo I've ever seen, but it's pretty bad.
So could you explain for the fans real quick what ended up happening around Twitter?
Some random dude on Twitter, I wanted to say his name's Jordan something, but he got the Conor McGregor fuck you, and it's not even pinstripe. He just got horizontal fuck yous written. Anyways.
It's not pinstripe. There's no stripes. It's just horizontal fuck yous all over his arm. Yeah,
there's no stripes involved.
It's so bad.
So, I think there's better ways you could be a fan of Conor McGregor, but that's just me.
Right, there's better ways you can show that affection.
I think this is a pretty... Yeah, I feel like our talks about Floyd Conor ended just like the press conferences did for me, where it was just...
Fizzled and dead.
Yeah, dead.
You could poke it with a stick, it didn't matter.
So, I think that this fight card, though, is pretty good for a Fox 25 card.
I would agree with that 100%. I'm really excited for this card. It has a great main event. It's out of New Jersey. Did I say that right?
No, Long Island.
Oh, where the hell's that?
New York.
How do they say it there?
Long Island.
Ah, I like it. What movie was that? Joe Pesci, is that mofo from there? I feel like Joe Pesci's got to be from there.
Long Island. Roosevelt, Long Island is where Howard Stern's from.
Oh, fun fact there, fans, in case you didn't know. Now he's living in Florida down the street from us. Just throwing that out there.
One of his houses, probably.
Exactly. So, this is headlined by a hell of a fight in Kevin Weidman versus Kelvin Gastelum. That's a barn burner. Can't wait to get to that fight. It's going to start regular time for us. I don't think there's any crazy stipulations. It starts off with Chris Wade fighting Frankie Perez at 155 pounds. This is a round 2 for them. Chris Wade won a split decision. Some people say it was controversial in a prior organization, so that's why it's the second time they're meeting.
I think it's pretty good for the first fight of the night.
Both of these guys are high caliber guys. I'm really surprised to see Chris Wade as coming off of 2 losses, but when you see it, it's versus Kabila and Makhachev, which are both wrestlers when he's predominantly a wrestler. But he has wins over Manny Baghdad and...
He fights out of Long Island.
He's a local boy. He's going to have the fans on his side. Frankie Perez, I don't think, is from New Jersey. Isn't that right across the bridge?
Pretty much.
So, I'm sure there's going to be hometown favorites for the both of these guys. And there's going to be... How's there not going to be brawls around this at this venue? For when stuff like this is happening.
New Yorkers. Long Island. There's going to be people there from all over the boroughs, I'm sure.
Right. So Frankie Perez is coming off of a unanimous decision versus Daikeski, and that was Dayeski 7 months ago, and then prior to that he has a win over Sam Stout. Prior to that, a loss to Johnny Case, and that was when he pretty much started the UFC. coming out of Ricardo Alameda's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Academy. These guys aren't even going to have to come in from out of town. Like, it is just drives for them. I like Chris Wade's wrestling a little bit more than Frankie Perez's. It's the amount of growth that these guys have been able to have. You know, Chris Wade has done good against most UFC competition unless you're a good wrestler. Frankie Perez, they've already fought once. It's who do you think has made the most growth in the shortest amount of time? And I feel like Frankie Perez has made the most amount of growth. He's at a much better camp. I'm sure Chris Wade's going to all sorts of other good camps in the area because it's easy for them. There's access in and around there. I think Frankie Perez has just got a bit more. This is going to be a coin flip of fight. I think where I'm going to stay with the Lat B prediction and stay away from the first fight. This fight, there's many better fights for me to pick. I'm going to say Wade decision. That's what I'm going to keep it at. Hard one to pick. Hard one to pick for me.
I thought you were going to go with Perez.
I was going to switch it. I was going to switch it. I was going to, and then I'm switching back, and
I have Wade decision as well. I feel like he's lost to better caliber fighters. That's it. Kessie.
Right.
I feel like he's a hype train. So when you lose to a hype train who's somebody I don't think is all that great, I just don't think you're all that great. And Chris Wade, he's been in some brawls.
I feel like Chris Wade beat it in a split decision, and
No, Chris
won
Wade
in a split decision. But with Perez as well, Johnny Case knocked him out, ground and pound, and I feel like Wade has gotten better in that specific avenue, and that's why I'm kind of still siding with Wade. Like you were saying, with the hype train, with that, I do feel like Chris Wade has had the better competition.
And
you made great points.
The two Russians that Chris Wade went against, to me, are higher caliber guys and strong MF guys, and he went to decision with both of them.
Right.
I don't think Perez is going to be as strong, so I think he'll be able to wear him away. So I have Wade decision as well.
Moving on to the next fight, we have...
Even though it looks like he doesn't win decisions, that seems like it's a far-off bet. It's weird we both have that.
Interesting. So moving on to the next 145 pounds, we have Shane Burgos versus Godofredo Pepe. The Hurricane Burgos, coming in 9-0. He's definitely had a couple fights in the UFC. If you haven't seen this guy fight, you haven't been watching fights for long, because he just come off of a huge win over Carlos Rosas. I picked Rosas in that. I thought he was going to be able to get him to the ground. Not at all. Burgos, great takedown defense. Burgos, strong, incredibly strong striker for the 145 pounds. I feel like Godofredo Pepe is trying to make a name for himself by trying to be a striker when his wrestling or jiu-jitsu credentials essentially got him there. I like Burgos. I think a lot of people are going to like Burgos. The takedown defense, as I was saying before, on point. And if you can't get him to the ground and you can't beat him standing, which I don't think Pepe can beat Burgos. Burgos throws punches straight down the pipe with power. A lot of things with intent. And what we saw in a few of his fights already is that he does have a good gas tank with power later into the rounds. Pepe's always had a rougher gas tank as well. Pepe doesn't have the best entries on his takedowns, so I think that Burgos can keep it standing. I think Burgos can eventually get him in round 2. I did have round 1 on here, but I'm going to give Pepe the benefit of the doubt. I think Burgos finishes second round TKO, maybe on the ground.
Everything you're saying, I don't think Pepe has a chin. And right now I have Pepe submission round 2. I just think if he could make it into the second round, he has a really good chance because of his jiu-jitsu, and he has really creepy submissions. Because I think Burgos could be exploited a little bit on the ground and might have holes in his game there. But then you said the takedown defense on the last fight, and then that makes me nervous that maybe I do want to put knockout for It's and just 3 months ago, and there's no telling.
So with Pepe has one loss, but it's only against Darren Elkins, and it's in a decision, and that happened because Elkins was able.
Wasn't that fight a brawl though? Wasn't that a crazy brawl of a fight?
No. That was Elkins versus an up and comer guy. I can't think of his name. Pepe lost just a wrestling match pretty much. It was a while ago. I know the fight you're talking about, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. But either way, Pepe was been exploited with...
Are you sure it wasn't against Pepe? That was just 11 months ago. The damage.
Yeah, but he TKO'd him. The damage TKO'd him. He didn't decision him. He finished him in the third round because he was eating 10-8 rounds.
Yeah, you're right.
So it was Bektik. He beat Bektik.
You're right.
Mirsad Bektik. So I don't think though that again Pepe he more jumps to guard, and if Burgos wants to keep it saying like I'm saying, so yep, that's where I go. I see the avenue, and you make a good point for the people out there with the betting. Pepe's avenue of winning this is jumping all over Burgos and submitting him.
With a jumping submission somehow. I agree with you.
Yeah. Or somehow sneakily get Burgos
it only
to come to
goes,
the ground.
yeah, it's
but
the
it's
only way
knockout
it wins.
or submission for the other guys. So moving on to the next fight.
I might have to change it to
So,
Burgos right now. I'm changing it, and I don't think round 2. I think it's round 1. Oh, if he catches him, I'm gonna be so mad at myself. But whoop, I'm not the only one, so it seems like anyone that does think Pepe's going to finish the fight is also...
Picking by submission.
Don't you think it's the highest caliber that Burgos has ever gone against?
I feel like Burgos has had some good quality fights on the undercard because he was fighting out of a good organization. I think Charles Rosas is high caliber competition. I know some people don't think that, but I really like Rosas. I really thought that he has a lot of really good attributes in MMA and a good gas tank, and Burgos did not. I mean, the will was there, but Burgos never let up for pretty much into the third round, which showed that gas tank was just there. Pepe does gas too. Pepe throws.
I'm changing it to Burgos. You sold me.
Moving to the next fight, we have a heavyweight bout. This one's definitely going to get hot and heavy between Timothy Johnson and a debuter, Junior Albini. Am I saying that right? Albini. And that doesn't sound Brazilian,
Baby.
but he's coming out of Brazil, or am I wrong on that?
Baby. The Last Dinosaur. Have you ever seen that movie?
Yes. The kids' movies that are made out of cartoons?
No, it's not a cartoon.
Not The Land Before Time? Those are
Not
dope.
Denver, The Last Dinosaur.
Oh!
Baby. It was like a weird animatronic little miniature dinosaur.
Sorry.
It's an old fucking movie. I
Yep,
feel like I
yep.
saw it on like Fox at 3 p.m. on a Sunday. You know how they used to have those movies
In black and
when you
white?
were a kid? No, it was in black and white.
I can't say. I do know there was the family of dinosaurs that lived together and knocked the mama, and he hit him in the head with a
Oh,
frying
the
pan.
dinosaurs.
Yeah, what were they called? The dinosaurs?
I think. The dinosaurs.
Exactly.
That show was fucking awful.
You know, it was horrible. Know who reminds me of one of them dinosaurs? Exactly. Timothy Johnson, that big old blob of a man, definitely comes in with wrestling credentials, but just pretty much being a dad. That's what his mustache carries the most credentials in that ring. He's been in some brutal fights. Only a few losses coming in the UFC, but we know how that we're lacking in the heavyweight division. He has a loss against Jared Ralsho, where he got out-wrestled the entire fight. Then he beat Timura in a decision, a split decision versus Volkov, and a split decision over Omelianchuk. So guess what? Timothy Johnson, split decision over Albini. The Brazilian, 26 years old, is debuting. He's beating guys that are coming with 19 and 12 records, guys that have 2 and 3. So on losing records, guys are coming in against this guy. 6-0, he has a TKO. I think just the amount of fighters that Timothy Johnson's come in with, his wrestling is held up against better jiu-jitsu guys. I think Timothy Johnson just uses his weight, and this young heavyweight is going to say, oh shit, heavyweights in the UFC, like everybody says, UFC caliber fighters change the game, and it's going to be a decision, maybe ground and pound TKO.
I totally agree. I think the exact same thing. I think you put Johnson on everything, every one of your cards.
Yep.
I think if you can get the betters at all, or the odds makers to pick Albini. That'll be great for us because I think Johnson definitely decision finish, maybe even a KO victory.
But it's a gas tank victory for me.
Yeah.
I feel like he wears him out with a gas tank. It's not going to be punches because that's what Timothy Johnson
But he has
does.
a good chin too.
He lays on people and they punch him and then they get tired and
He's
fall
a
over.
big ass guy.
Yeah, exactly. He cuts to make 265
So
for sure.
yeah, I agree. I think Johnson all day.
So that was my air horn. That was my Mayweather air horn.
Oh, mine's womp 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 womp.
Oh, did you hear that? How did he come in with that air horn? Just throwing that out there. That guy just has that for his life. Air horns. It was horrible.
I think he conjured it like 1997 rolled up.
Because that's for real. 2008.
I felt like I was waiting for like 95. Come on, ride the train and ride it.
Jamie Foxx to come
Come
in
on,
singing.
ride the train and ride it.
So moving on to the next fight, we have Brian Kelleher versus Brandon Chito Vera. Boja! This is one of my fan favorites. I love Chito Vera, even though he has a horrible gas tank. But he has that Leslie Smith heart. So that goes a long way for me in this fight game. And Chito's proven it to us that he tells you why his daughter she's disabled and has a lot of disabilities. And he fights for a paycheck to get her the help she needs. Kelleher's coming in with a strong ground game. Coming out of the New York scene, he's definitely going to use his wrestling to get people to the ground and submit them. Submission is definitely a choice of his, but he's got a couple TKOs in there. This is his second fight, beating Yuri Alcantara in a submission guillotine choke a month ago. That was a huge upset. I think Alcantara was like a 8 or 9 to 1 favorite. I remember that. So Kelleher's turning right around. I think people need to be really careful with Kelleher. Kelleher looked good against Alcantara, but Alcantara has had showings prior to that where sometimes he doesn't show up to fight. Like I said, even if you hurt Chito Vera, he has that heart for me. I feel like he's going to be an underdog, but Chito has got good kickboxing, only getting better the longer he's been at Winklejohn's over at Albuquerque. He's a guy that even when he's gassed and can't throw a punch, magically throws a head kick and knocks out Brad Pickett on his retirement fight. Brad Pickett was winning that fight all day because Chito Vera came in at 11 days' notice. And now with a full training camp, Kelleher being on a hype thinking he's going to walk through people, I think there's going to be a early submission round 1, Chito Vera. If not, submission round 3. I just feel like Kelleher's going to come in a little overconfident with that wrestling. And like he guillotined Alcantara, Vera's going to do something like that and use his wrestling to trap him. How do you feel about this fight?
I have Kelleher submission round 2 right now. I'm changing it. I love Chito. Chito's one of my favorite fighters, and I went back and forth on this in the pick when I made it originally, and I allowed everybody, the hype train, sway me a little here. I think Alcantara got caught. I think Chito is always an underdog you go with. How could I not? I'm changing it right now. I think Kelleher is going to be overconfident, and I think Cheeto is going to catch him up. Chito doesn't lose a fight unless it's by decision. I think a mistake, even if Kelleher wins this, it'll only be by decision, but he's going to be so expensive, it's not going to be worth it.
I agree.
I think Chito all day, and I am going to change it to Chito submission round 3, maybe as well. That might have been what you had too.
I have him round 1 because I think that, like we're saying with that overconfidence, he's going to shoot in and Chito's going to be like, okay, here's his neck, done. And they can that can happen when they're dry, but I could see it in the 3rd round.
I'm going to put Vera, I'm changing it, Chito KO round 3. I think the other thing, Chito, he's crazy. He throws crazy knees, crazy kicks, crazy. Yeah, I'm going to change it. I think Cheeto's going to catch him. I think Cheeto's the best fighter he's been in the ring with. I really love Alcantara too, but I've known him to quit in other fights. And so it's not...
So people are going to be super high on Kelleher, and it's like, no.
I think we might be able to get Vera for very cheap, and I think he could be our Leslie Smith underdog pick.
I feel like it's early in that breakdown. I made a reference to Chito Vera's underdogness and that Leslie Smith way of like, he don't quit, he doesn't stop moving.
Yep, I agree.
So moving on to the next fight, we have Kyle Burnek versus Jeremy Kennedy. These are both guys that have fought at 145 pounds before. Bernack beating a split decision over Barzola. That was 10 months ago. And then he has a loss prior to that to Charlie Rosas in a decision. And then he's unbeaten prior to that. So he's coming in 7-1 against Jeremy Kennedy, who's 10-0 out of Canada. He definitely has had
I have to be honest on this fight already.
Yep.
This is the fight, like, if you have to go to Little Caesars and get yourself the deep dish. If you have to, this is the fight you go in.
I would agree.
I think this is going to be...
100%.
I see your pick, Kennedy decision.
Right.
I think it's going to be a boring-ass
Wrestling match.
decision.
Wrestling match.
And it'll be a decisive decision. I don't think it'll be a big deal. The way DraftKings is scoring now with reversals, it might be worth a little points.
But the way to which guy? That's where...
I think Kennedy decision. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think that it's harder caliber, but I just think it's going to be a snooze fest of a fight.
I think it's going to be takedown, hold on the ground, one guy gets top position, and that Kennedy is going to be that guy who gets top position. He has much more decisions in his career, coming off 2 losses off of someone like Honey Jason in the UFC. I'm not too excited to see these guys go in the UFC unless they really start to mix up their wrestling in reverse. But yeah, I think it is going to be a ground battle. And moving on to the heavyweight division, we have a fight between Damian Grabowski versus Chase Sherman. This is going to be a slobber knocker, as some might say. Grabowski is coming off of 2 losses, and Sherman's getting his first win in the UFC as of his last fight, knocking out Coulter in a standing TKO with elbows. Prior to that, Sherman was on a 2-fight losing streak against Justin Ledet in a decision and Walt Harris in a TKO. So I feel like he just beat Coulter a month ago. So Sherman turned right around, and I thought he took almost no damage. Coulter might have come in on short notice as well. Am I wrong on that? But either way, Grabowski being 37 years old, losing knockout how long ago? This was 11 months ago. He's healed up pretty good. 2 knockouts in a row against Derek Lewis and Anthony Hamilton. He definitely can't take power shots. Submission game is where he wants to get it. The scary thing about this fight for me is that the guys that Sherman has fought haven't had good takedowns or tried to take him down. And in that Ledet fight, Sherman got outboxed. So I know Sherman can get outboxed. But Grabowski doesn't have that type of boxing. Grabowski has much better takedowns than most people and likes to use them. And I haven't seen any of Sherman's ground game. So it's really, really, really scary for me to put Sherman on this fight. I'm not going to pick Grabowski with his advanced stage and just the knockouts that have come up. Sherman also hasn't had the biggest amount of power, even for heavyweights. For me, I just feel like that TKO was a standing TKO. That wasn't a flat dead TKO. Give all credit to Coulter, but I think Grabowski's on his way out of the UFC. Grabowski is going to do what he can to try to get this fight to the ground, and it's on Sherman to keep him away. I think his takedown defense is going to be tested, and if we see one takedown and Sherman, if there's a takedown, this fight's going to stay on the ground for the whole round. Grabowski is going to let him up. Submission might not come, but I think this is going to be a bit of a snoozer myself. How do you feel about this fight?
I have to think, I'm trying to think of the UFC as this new entertainment business now that they're going with, and they are building up Sherman. They seem to throw Grabowski in the way of people that they want. Usually I always go with the Polish fighter. You know how I feel about him, but I think his body looks good. He's an old guy with a weak chin, and when he gets knocked out, it's blasted knockout. I think it looks ugly, and that's kind of what the UFC wants, to build up these new vanilla gorilla, you know. So I think Sherman, a dangerous thing with him is I think he's going to get that ugly knockout. I think he's going to get it in round 1. I think the UFC is going to throw him against somebody very dangerous next time, and he's going to be a hype train. And I really like Sherman. I think he's fun on Twitter. I think his fights are pretty entertaining. I think his losses are respectable losses. I'm not as worried about his ground game. I think he has good takedown defense. That's where he got in trouble with the knee. But I am worried about his cardio, but I think he's still young. I don't even think he's in the prime of his career yet. I think all this is going to be a learning lesson.
This is where I think that I'm not too worried about it. Because like I said, with the Ledet fight and his other fights, he does have a good gas tank for a heavyweight. And he's a kickboxer. But he tries to keep it boxing and throws minutes. He's getting better. I think Sherman has the most projection in the careers out of those two. I think Grabowski might be, again, on his way out.
I have Sherman KO round 1. I think he's fighting for a paycheck. Moving on.
Quick with Sherman, you were saying the Vanilla Gorilla. He's been having a big Twitter presence. I'm sure he got a ton of followers after being on the MMA Hour today. But I followed him since he had just a few Twitter followers. And it's unbelievable how much that guy tweets. Unreal. Did we talk about this before somewhere?
I just said it in my breakdown just now, right beforehand.
Oh, man. So moving on to the next fight, we have a fight between, at 170 pounds, between Ryan LaFleur and Alex Oliveira. This is the Brazilian cowboy, Ryan LaFleur's 4 months ago. We know what we're getting with Ryan LaFleur. Wrestling. Ryan LaFleur's only lost is to Damian Maia via decision. Does that change everything does that change everything you've thought about? Moving into this fight, I know Oliveira's going to have the striking advantage, but if you can't get yourself off the ground, you can't win a fight. Oliveira comes in with the striking game, jiu-jitsu off of his back, not too bad, but he can get out-wrestled. Every fight starts standing, he has power, his takedown defense is okay, but not against the level of Ryan LaFleur. Ryan LaFleur has took down the best of them. I have been a big Ryan LaFleur guy. He's been out for a while due to injury. He's been on the scene more as of late. He's still doing these things. He can take you down in the middle of the ring. Great timing. He has that Nash type of timing. But he will easily... has more of a Randy Couture style when he puts you up to the fence, drags you down, and ground and pounds you. He throws punches from every single corner of the ring and or on the ground. He doesn't ever stop moving, and he wears people out on the ground with constant pressure. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think Ryan LaFleur is going to end up getting a submission round 3 because he's going to wear down Oliveira. Oliveira's going to fight those submissions off for 2 rounds and be like, third round, I quit.
And Oliveira gives up.
He quits, exactly.
You're right on that.
Exactly.
I had a Cowboy in it before purely because he always finds that he's kind of like a...
Yo, Romero.
Yes.
That's what I wanted to say earlier, too.
He always finds something that he makes it dirty.
He can make it.
It's
yes,
like, does he have a razor blade in his glove?
We could see an eye poke that's a no contest this fight. Because that's the type of fighter.
If you're going to put
Cowboy.
Money on something, one of the fights,
something
if
weird
there's a
happens,
prop.
This is like a Ian McCall.
No contest.
Does it make the fight? Ian McCall kind of prop. No contest because of an eye poke. Or just something weird happens, a door opens on the cage and they have to stop for like...
Yeah, something weird always with the Cowboy
parachute
fights.
dude flies in.
And so I do feel I had Cowboy, but he does give up. So if he finished, it's not going to be in the 3rd round because he has shit cardio.
Exactly. I feel like if Oliveira, just to give people
I love the
a
Black
shot,
Zillions. I'm changing it. I also have LaFleur submission round 3. I can see Cowboy giving up all day, but I could also see LaFleur laying some nasty elbows and ground and pound finish round 3.
I can see
But
that
I'm
from the half
going
guard.
to go with submission as well.
Just for the bettors out there, Oliveira has a shot like every striker in that first round. At any time they have to come in off of the stools, they have to be standing and LaFleur has to get him down. Once they're on the ground, I'm not worried. LaFleur's submission defense is on point, so Oliveira is not going to do anything but try to get back to
Because
standing.
Oliveira does have some sneaky-ass submissions.
LaFleur withstood Damian Maia's submissions.
After
for
you
3
said
rounds.
that and pointed it out,
That's
the only thing I was worried about.
Exactly, and it's not going to... So, where that's... Just for
Oliveira
the bettors...
has
avenues,
nasty elbows.
He has nasty knockouts where any knee in the first round, if you throw a knee and the other guy's shooting in for it, we've seen it before. Cub Swanson,
Yeah.
Jose Aldo. So it can happen, but I'm getting a flare.
I agree with you.
Moving on to the next fight, we have Rafael Natal versus Eric Andres. I feel like this is
Anders,
like just like that show.
I think so. Workaholics.
Workaholics. That they went off the air. That was one of the best shows ever.
Those guys blew up though.
Yeah,
Every one of them.
they're doing real money film now. They're making real money. This is, I feel like, a little interesting because Natal's coming off of a two losing streak. He's definitely fought in the UFC a whole lot longer. He's 34 years old with a long career. Anders being 30 isn't too far off, but he only has 6 fights in his career. Anders is coming in with a lot of finishes, I feel like. Well, his last fight being a decision. He has a couple bouts in Bellator, and I was able to see a little bit of tape on him. One fight only. He looks like he's got good striking and iffy takedown defense. The competition he's fought isn't nearly the level Natal has, but I've wanted Natal out of the UFC for so long. His ground game is what's kept him in the fights, and he's been in some of the worst fights of the year, multiple years in a row. If you're always like, ooh, this guy's fight of the year, Natal always in the bottom 3 worst fucking fights of the year. He will put you on the fence and just stand there. He won't even throw punches and get one takedown at the end of every round, and that'll be the entire fight. Natal's chin is pretty much gone. If I remember correctly, that's why he has such a game plan that's so grappling heavy, is because he can't take those type of punches. Coming off a knockout off of Tim Bosch, prior to that losing to Robert Whittaker, but he had a little streak prior to that, beating people like Kevin Casey, who's also out of the UFC. Split decision to Ryan Hall, but don't let that mislead you. Ryan Hall has no gas tank, and he can get out grappled. If Anders can keep him off for any amount of time, I think Natal's gas tank even is in against him. I hope Anders gets this done TKO round 1 because I think he has the power in Natal. But I can see the decision coming for Natal, and if it happens, get ready for a snooze fest, guys. How do you feel about this fight?
Anders KO round 2. I only think Rafael Natal has enough gas tank to get through 1 round. I think he can get through 1 round. I think he can keep backing up into the cage, squaring out. Backing up into the cage, squaring out. Boring ass round 1.
Yep.
Round 2, Anders is going to get his timing. I hope he clips him. I'm over Natal as much as you are. He's one of my least favorite fighters in the UFC. No love lost here. I hope we see the rise of Eric Anders.
I agree.
Moving on.
I agree. I think that guy's definitely somebody to watch. So moving on, speaking of somebody to watch, we have Liam Good versus... Ooh, you're going to help me out with them.
Elijah Zaleski.
Zaleski, I believe.
What's
both
his nickname?
These guys.
I need some glasses here.
Capoeira?
Yeah, it looks something like that.
That's what I see.
He's Brazilian.
Well, that makes more sense. He's coming off a decision in the UFC versus a Japanese fighter, and then knocking out a Russian fighter, losing in a split decision to Nicholas Dalby, who's the decision king. And coming off of submissions, TKOs, Liam Good, 32 years old, knocking out Andrew Craig as of late, a year and 11 months ago, and then 2 years prior to that, submission. Liam Goodman, I feel like, has been injured, but the reason that we haven't seen him is because he popped for steroids. And if you see Liam Goodman, saw photos of him prior to his last fight, you could see why he popped. Humongous human being for 170 pounds. He is 6 foot. I feel like Zaleski usually is the tallest guy in there at 170. 170 years like it can get to 6'1", but the amount of muscle that Good has with 6 foot, you're just like, it's unreal. You believe he's a 185er and he has to cut there. With that, is this the first time we're going to see Liam come in here and win this fight? I feel like Liam's coming out of Tiger Schumann. His takedown defense isn't the greatest. He's 19-3. He's been a hype prospect. Zaleski can take him down, make this nasty, turn it into a scrap, but the likely guy, I have Good TKO round 1 because I don't think he has. I'm just giving you the avenue for Zaleski. He can make this a decision fight because Good can be exploited, especially after the USADA stuff. Like, this is one thing that I'm most hesitant about this specific fight. I do have Good TKO round 1, but I gotta wait till weigh-ins because You'll see his before and after, and other people are going to quote after this podcast. They're going to be like, "Whoa, look at the change. It might be better or worse, but more than likely worse because he popped. He had a big pop, and he's just coming off of the suspension." How do you feel about this
I
fight?
am picking a heavy underdog, and I know it's going to be a heavy underdog, and I'll probably have him on a lot of my cards. I think it's going to be a Zaleski decision. I don't think Good's going to have the cardio like he did with steroids. I don't think a year and 11 months gap for him to come back in.
It's hard to get back on that horse and train.
And I think Zaleski is usually an underdog. I don't think it's a big deal. I think this is going to be a harder fight than he thinks it is. And I just think it's going to be a grind, boring fight. I don't think we're going to see the same... Life after USADA hasn't been kind to most of the fighters that were on. There isn't any of them that we've seen come back, and some will say Jose Aldo, but it's like, now he's Christmas treed. He wins one, loses one, wins one, loses one. He's not the Jose Aldo of USADA.
This is a Les Gutches, a legendary collegiate wrestling champion trainer who was a awesome wrestler, always said this specifically about steroids. I don't have my guys do it when he always had the option in college because it's a crutch. Because as soon as you take those away, those guys can't wrestle, and then they're not worth anything. So he would specifically never let his guys use any of that stuff when other opponents, and they would still beat the steroided guys because he thought it put a mental weakness, and I feel like Good might be in that situation, guys. He might not have that thing that makes him feel extra strong. Because
and Zaleski has ugly knees. Akhmedov, that was a huge underdog. He was a huge underdog.
Of a fight, and you make great points. It can turn exactly into a disgusting grind. And we've called a couple boring fights this card. It doesn't look good for the fans out here.
It doesn't look like a really good card. And the more we were looking at it, and just moving into this next fight, I'm like, yeah. Let's see if the main card has more of a pop, and this might be one of the ones if you're getting heat from the wife and you already know you're not going to be allowed to watch 214. Avoid the whole beginning of the one. You might be able to tuck her in before 10 o'clock, turn on the main event tonight, watch this, and save up all your brownie points for 214.
Comey, I think you're making really valid points because this is the truth. Keeping the significant others happy is a tough one to do when it is weekend after weekend.
Yeah, we don't have a season, you guys. It's fight season year round.
It's a long haul.
Yeah,
guys.
so
You
this
gotta
might
plan
be a
around
one.
it.
No, baby. I wanted to take you on a date tonight. Let's go out and eat. Let's go have a cocktail.
You got to go to Italian food. Let me tell you why you go to Italian food. Because you
Snooze
get that
fest.
extra pasta. No, honey, you get that extra pasta. Oh,
But then you can't hurt
yourself.
yourself. You got to be a little smarter about it.
Oh, no, girl, my stomach hurts a little bit. You enjoy. I'm just going to get this salad and a couple beers.
And
maybe
the
have an
stuff
extra
to go.
sangria.
The stuff to go.
Give me some garlic bread to go, homie. I'll feel better at home.
Yeah, you'll be so excited when you're rolling around at the Jimmy Rivera Thomas Alameda fight, opening your little tinfoil bowl.
As soon as you're cracking the door, your girl's gonna be like, "Oh, I'm feeling kind of tired," and you're gonna be like, "Yeah, let's go take a nap," and you just go lay down.
No, you turn on the TV and they're like, "Put your feet on my lap. Let me rub your feet."
Out,
Sleep.
but put a pillow on them.
Little pillow under there,
Yeah.
rub the little feetsy feet, sleep. Then
think
you're
that's a
like,
good
go to
call.
bed. It's time to go to bed. And then you're like, these are just reruns. These are just rerun fights.
So you could definitely take the beginning of this fight card off via Lat B. You're welcome. Moving on to the co-main event, this is definitely, as you were saying.
No, this is just the beginning of the main
event.
card.
Oh, God.
That's why I'm like...
Oh, I know. It got me. So, this is definitely a contender for the fight of the year. This could be any fight that this young man, Jimmy Rivera versus Thomas Alameda, Thomas Alameda being that young man, he's a cyborg. They're both cyborgs. They're both... Jimmy Rivera coming in with a 20-1 record. Thomas Alameda only coming in with a 22-1 record. Only loss being to Cody Garbrandt for Alameda. I can't think of who Rivera's loss is to. I know it was in the UFC. It was a grinder. It was a more of a grinding style, boring fight. Alameda will always be mindful his striking. He's got wonderful knees, great uppercuts, is a little bit wild, has that forward pressure and momentum, but his takedown defense is okay, and that's
he
what
lost
I think.
to Dennis Bermudez.
And I feel like the fight of the year, or a contender for fight of the year. It was a slugfest.
He lost 1 minute and 41 seconds in round 2.
So they had a good round
But
one.
it had to. I mean,
It was-
Dennis Bermudez and Rivera just
It was a great fight, and I feel
Ultimate
like the
Fighter season
expectation-
14.
Was it for the main event or for the
I
show?
don't know, maybe.
So with Alameda, his takedown defense isn't so on point. I feel like Rivera can exploit that wrestling game. Rivera can strike if he wants to, but Alameda is so wild that he can land any punch and it'll hurt you because he throws everything into a very looping shot. But that's why I also picked Cody Garbrandt against him, was that Cody Garbrandt has a very specific crisp style that'll beat looping punches. Jimmy Rivera has that style. He's a crisp boxer. So I think that Jimmy Rivera can beat him on the inside and pepper him up. But I think Jimmy Rivera is going to end up using his wrestling. I think Alameda throws submissions up a lot, but Jimmy Rivera has great submission defense, and he can land also a lot of punches from the side control and will just decision, if not TKO in the later rounds. I think the gas tank and the takedown defense fail Alameda, and I think that on tap, it's pretty close. A lot of people are picking Alameda TKO, and I can see that TKO because a knee against the Rivera's takedown will ruin you every time, and Alameda throws those type of knees that will catch a wrestler coming in. That you got to be careful with Alameda. Fun fight. I cannot wait for this fight.
I like Jimmy Rivera for all the same reasons you do. I don't think he loses to Alameda here, but I don't think Alameda is by any means a walkthrough.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. This could be the fight of the night easily, and I got Rivera decision, and I think it'll be maybe even a split decision. It'll be tight. But I think that this one, both guys will be worth points, not heavy points. So only if either is affordable. That's what I think about this fight.
I agree with that, and I think that Alameda might be the...
I don't think
interesting.
anyone's getting finished in this fight.
That's where I was in the Alameda.
Yeah, Alameda Rivera. I don't think anyone's getting finished, in my opinion.
I could see it going for both guys.
Cody
both
Garbrandt
Rivers.
is one of those special guys to me. He has special power, special timing, and he clipped
He was beating him to the punch
Alameda.
every time.
But didn't he clip him pretty early?
No, it was inside straight punches. Alameda he did the ducking Muay Thai where he throws a hook with everything into it. His looping.
Was it in round 1 or 2?
Yeah,
that's what I mean.
From the first,
That's what
because Cody was like looping punch, bam!
And it was right in
So any
the
good boxer
beginning
will
with
do that.
all
Yeah.
Cody's strength.
Yep.
So I don't
Jimmy
think...
Rivera can do that though. Like he's not as good as Cody Garbrandt, but he has that type of boxing where it's crisp like that. Not as much power though. Cody does have that special power. Cody puts everybody that Cody hits, they feel it. Moving on to guys that don't like to fight people with power. We have John Vellante at 205 fighting Patrick Cummings. This is the chinniest fight of the night. Both of these guys have been now in a little while. You know that Vellante has wrestling credentials coming in on the West Coast, being Chris Weidman's #1 training partner for many years, doing the whole East Coast wrestling scene, being ex-champ so many times. Patrick Cummings also being an Olympic alternate and training with Daniel Cormier, making his entrance into the UFC, specifically fighting Cormier on short notice. Pat Cummings is coming off of a win off of his last fight versus a majority decision to Blachowicz, but previously lost a few fights to Teixeira, TKO, and to Rodrigo Nogueira. This is how much of a chin that Pat Cummings doesn't have, and I'm sorry, but he doesn't. I will always be cautious of Pat Cummings. John Vellante's in that same boat. John Vellante is win one, lose one for a long time now, and he just lost to Shogun, who 3 months ago. You know how we feel about people that just get knocked out within 4 or 5 months. John Vellante's in that boat, and I already am telling you, he's got a rough chin. He beat TKO, a short notice fighter, and then he lost to Latifi, won against Anthony Perosh, who's also out of the UFC, and then lost to Tom Lawler, TKO punches. In a fight he was winning. John Vellante's, it's who's going to land the punch first. If this can turn into a wrestling match because they both like to wrestle, it can also just be a kickboxing match. I think this is going to be a boring fight either way because they're both going to be ultra cautious because they've been both doing that. They're going to be on the cage the whole time. but I do give Patrick Cummings the slight edge because he tends to go to his wrestling a bit earlier, where John Vellante will wait to get in trouble to go to his wrestling, and then it doesn't work out for him. So I got Pat Cummings in this. Stay away from this fight all the way around. Somebody could fart too hard in the 2 aisles over and knock one of these motherfuckers out. I'm telling you.
I think Patrick Cummings is going to knock Vellante out in round 1 or 2. I can't even believe you think it can go to decision. There's no way.
It's going to just be wrestling, though. I'm telling you, it's just going to be wrestling.
Vellante is going to force it to be a swinging match.
He does do that more than Cummings. But that's what I'm saying. Cummings has been doing more I'm just going to shoot on you.
But because he's going to force it, I think he's going to clip him. I'm even going to move it up to Cummings KO round 1. I just don't even. They're both awful, and I do not think you put this anywhere. I think both guys are so chinny. I think the real gamble would be
either
putting money that it makes it to decision.
Or would this be one of those?
Either guy could get clipped at any time in the fight. Just a breeze, and it's over.
Did you just hear the fart comment?
Yeah. So I just feel like I can't believe you would pick Cummings' decision. He did win his last one by decision.
Yeah, majority decision.
And against a brawler in his last fight.
Blachowicz is also more of a wrestler. Yeah. Both of these guys, I'm not excited for. Not that I'm not excited. I think Vellante's been on his way out a little bit and has stayed in because he's been a homie to the full champ for a while in Chris Weidman. But I think Cummings...
I think Vellante's going to get hurt. I think he's going to go in for the takedown. I think he's going to go in for the takedown. Yeah. Cummings he's a way better wrestler. Right. And he's going to have good takedown defense. And Vellante, once he gets clipped and hurt, it's just...
over. Yeah, it happens so many times over.
But neither guy. Don't put either guy. Don't ruin your night.
Stay away from that one completely. Moving on to the next fight, we have about at 145 pounds between Darren Elkins, The Damage, and Dennis Bermudez. It looks to me like it can turn into another wrestling match because both of these guys come in with wrestling credentials. You know what The Damage does. Definitely coming off of one of the biggest upsets of the year, being like a 8 or 9 to 1 underdog. He did get the living shit kicked out of him until he came up with that fishing because back to Gas. He hit Elkins as a punching bag for the entire time. Elkins is coming out of that Team Alpha Male still camp. You know Elkins comes in with a great gas tank. The Damage can take the damage, and that's been attribute for a long time for him. But how much longer? How much longer can he be a punching bag where he just can't take it? We've seen it happen in many other fighters, and that's what I would just say caution with The Damage, is that eventually those shots are going to accumulate, and I think that this is a fight that's going to happen. He just took a pounding 4 months ago, came back with the biggest upset. He needs to rest more than 4 months. I know he needs to get a paycheck, but he had multiple lacerations on that face in that fight as well. He's a guy that digs deep, but I think that this is going to be... Dennis Bermudez can use his wrestling to keep fights standing. He's a better wrestler here. He has fixed his gas tank problems as well. But I feel like Bermudez is going to end up just landing overhand rights and uppercuts into where Damage is going to go night, and it's going to be accumulation of fighting so frequently in such recent brawls with such type of brawlers. How do you feel about this fight?
I don't like the fact that Dennis Bermudez was knocked out 5 months ago.
Also happened
and
against Sung Jung.
I also think Darren Elkins is just... He's not going to climb too much further up this, but I do think he's going to climb past Bermudez. If this goes to decision, which I think it will, Darren Elkins isn't a chinny guy. Bermudez is, power is the last thing to go, but for some reason he just hasn't been looking as great, even in his last few wins. I'm going to go with Darren Elkins' decision here. Ooh. I think he grinds out. I don't think this is going to be a very exciting fight. Yeah, look at it.
Another good one coming at you.
But I think it's all for this, which I can't believe this is the fight that's on Fox 25. Really, this should be on 214.
This should be on the undercard of a pay-per-view. This should not be I agree. We have Chris Weidman headlining about at 185 pounds with Kelvin Fatboy Gastelum.
Or maybe this shows our range of the UFC of it's just weird to see Chris Weidman on a Fox card.
Because he's been such a pay-per-view star and a legend killer. Like, he just, well, the one legend he killed horribly multiple times. We know what we're getting. We know what we're getting with Chris Weidman wrestling, but does he really use his wrestling?
Hasn't for a while, and it shows.
Other than in reverse, but guess what? Kelvin does not shoot takedowns really. He hasn't for a while. He stayed as more of a boxer, kickboxer, throws few kicks, but really is just a crisp boxer. Tons of power. Gas tank has been issues, but it was more with his weight cuts. Did he have trouble making 185? No, that was Johnny Hendricks. Okay. Fat Boy's still good at 185. We know that Chris Weidman comes in from like 220, but he's at a full training camp. Weidman's coming off of 3 losses, but they're the top caliber guys. And they're fights that he was even winning at points in times. But he can be finished. Gastelum has not been finished that I can think of. I think he's only lost decisions out of his 14 fights, or 16 fights, in a split decision over Neil Magny, where he had a really tough weight cut. And then he's been on a recent streak. He was just overturned Belfort's KO because of trace marijuana elements.
That was, to me, that was a bullshit call just to get the Anderson Silva fight not to go.
Oh yeah, they scrapped it because they realized he was going to eat Silva
honestly,
alive.
I'd rather see this fight all day against Weidman than Silva.
But who would have won, Gastelum and Silva?
I would have had Kelvin all day, and I think he would have been cheap on cards.
I agree with that, and I think, I don't know though, because I could see that people are on this skid that Chris Weidman's been on, being 3 in a row. These are his only 3 losses in his career, Chris Weidman. It's Gegard Mousasi, Yoel Romero, and Luke Rockhold. All top 3, top 5 guys. I mean, Kelvin, this is his highest step up in caliber. Johnny Hendricks, though, being a former champ that he beat as well. So it could be in there. I think that Weidman cuts so much weight and has such bad knees and is just getting up there at 33 with a long career in wrestling. Weidman came in off of a long collegiate career and has always had bad knees. And I feel like the fighter that tends to slow down more is Chris Weidman. I think Gastelum doesn't want to ever go to the ground, and neither does Weidman, and this is going to turn into a kickboxing match. I feel like Kelvin is starting to throw more and more leg kicks with his boxing, and Weidman can be exploited with those front kicks. Actually, broken leg with Silva. The second fight, it was because his coaches hated how much Weidman didn't check. So he did it for the second fight. I feel like you can open that up with a little bit of boxing. Kelvin has amazing... When he looks, he's hopping around. He's like a ball of muscle just on 2 light little feet. He's all torso. And, fuck. Rarely have I seen that guy hurt. Rarely have I seen him ultra gas. He can go to his wrestling if he needs to, but this is going to be a kickboxing match. I got a TKO round 5. Kelvin, I got my fat boy. You know I'm going to have him on a bunch of DK, even both of these guys, because I think they could go far.
I used to be anti-Kelvin. I used to be, because he always missed weight. At 185, I think he is such a young man. We're going to see him settle into this weight class, something beautiful. He's this cross, this mix between old school UFC and the new breed. He's young enough to still be a whole new breed fighter. 25. But can you believe how many fights he's already had in the UFC?
In the UFC, he won the show. He beat Uriah Hall.
I think he's a little pack of muscles. I think he's getting better and better every day. You kept saying Chris Weidman's knees, and all I kept thinking is Chris Weidman is going to take a knee, and that's how he's going to go out again. For some reason, it's
going to be a weird finish.
He cannot handle knees. If anyone, because he always goes for the same takedown. People time his takedown. Everyone has it timed. Yeah. So they just all have a knee, and you know who has a good knee? Kelvin. So I think he's going to be one to watch in this division, and everyone's going to underestimate him because of his height, and I think that the way he carries 185 is dangerous. I think the way he carries the center of gravity is dangerous. I'm not worried about him here, and I got Kelvin KO round 2.
Oh, interesting thing quickly with Weidman. He was on the MMA Hour a few weeks ago, but he was saying specifically that everybody, his wife, his friends, his coaches, his promoters all said, don't take this fight at home. Bad juju. you don't want to do this. Guys that are doing this at home to be like, whatever, it's not good. He is the only person in that fucking part of town that he knows that wants to take that fight.
That's ego.
I think that's even more of a sign, and I'm only bringing that up because I'm like...
You said something interesting, though. I'm not interested in Weidman anymore at 185. If he
needs to move to 205,
if
right?
he's at 205, I want to see him fight again.
Yep.
I think he is so chinny cutting that weight. I think the weight is the number one proponent for him being so chinny. It was easier to do when he was a young man, and he's getting older now.
Right, and he's killing himself still, but he's not recuperating. It's like, yeah, he's getting older.
Maybe he could take a tip from somebody named Kelvin Gastelum.
That's what I was going to say a bit earlier was. Learn from the good old fat boy. He'll teach you. You be eating all the New York subs you want, homeboy. So this sounds like a snoozer up until pretty much the last two fights. There's another speckled one in there here and there, but again, if you take a little bit of advice, just the main card mainly. Don't worry about that other stuff so much. There's going to be a lot of decisions. There's going to be a lot of...
You can follow that on Twitter when your girl's using the restroom.
Exactly.
While you're at the Italian restaurant, filling her up.
With all those spicy clams and pasta.
Yeah, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes.
Are you going to get into anything else this coming up week?
Work until that B starts paying our bills.
We're getting there.
Getting there. Set up the studio a little bit more today. Hopefully we'll be on YouTube before 2:14. I know we've given you a lot of promises, but with all these other hype train jumpers jumping on the UFC bandwagon since the world is finding out about McGregor.
By the way, quickly with that, I had a coworker who is 60 years old who told me, "Who's that Irish guy I know that you like fights? Yeah, I know him. He seemed fun." And I was like, a 60-year-old white woman is talking to me about Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather. She said, he's boxing or something? And I'm like, this is transcending next level. 60-year-old white women told me about, hey, I think I heard about that fight stuff. Unreal. They're not talking about Gastelum Weidman. That's coming up this weekend. They're talking about something that's...
They're not talking about Jones Cormier.
Exactly, yeah. But they're talking about Mayweather McGregor.
So for all things Lesbo and the Bean, follow us at lesboandthebean.com and follow us on Twitter at Lesbo and the Bean.